Welcome to EasyFlow. In this video, we will step you through everything you need to know to multi and parallel steps in conditional branching while building an automation using EasyFlow. Let's first create a new flow with the title, Steps and Conditions. From the Workflow Designer canvas, drag and drop the mapper built-in connector. This connector acts as a variable placeholder. In the first example, we will create a JSON object consisting of 5 keys: company, country, city, email, and established date. Be sure to set this step as your starting point. Let's see the outcome by clicking on the Preview Results button from the bottom menu bar. As you can see, the company information appears in JSON format as expected. We will use this while demonstrating the condition cases later on. In the next step, we will use the mapper connector to update the JSON payload from the first step. We will add an additional key named industry. For this, we will use the update function expression. Let's see how to configure that and test the results. As we can see, the flow returns a JSON containing the industry key. To continue demonstrating the multi-steps logic, let's add an additional step by sending the data to Google Sheets. The third step is to send data to Google Sheets. To do this, drag the Google Sheets connector into the Designer canvas, then configure it by selecting the Add a Row option from the Operations panel. After selecting the connection and filling out the spreadsheet ID and the range, you will need to map the Google Sheets data with the data coming from the second step. This can be done by following the below instructions. First, highlight a column item from the data text box in the Google Sheets configuration panel. Click on the 4 dots icon located to the left of the data text box. In the dynamic content panel, locate the Step 2 inches group and map the desired columns, such as company, country, city, email, established, and industry. Remember to connect the steps together and save. Finally, let's run the flow and test the results. We can see that the data went to Sheet 1, Google Sheets, as expected. So far, we have demonstrated the concept of multi-step processes. Next, we will show how to perform parallel and conditional steps. By adding 2 additional Google Sheets connectors, we can create 3 different branches after the second step. This can be done by linking the Step 2 to each of the Google Sheets connectors. We will be configuring each of these 3 Google Sheet steps to send the data to a different sheet or range. The first, Google Sheets, from the left will send data to Sheet 1, the middle one will send data to Sheet 2, and the third one will send data to Sheet 3. As part of the configuration, we need to map the data from each Google Sheets step to the second step in our flow. After running the flow, we noticed that the data went to Sheet 1 only, despite having the 3 Google Sheets properly configured. Actually, this is normal and expected behavior because the execution pattern of each of the branched steps is configured by default as transactional mode. This means that the workflow will proceed in a linear fashion, and accordingly the first configured path will be executed. To enable the parallel runs, and enable all the branches to be executed at the same time, we have to configure the execution mode of each of the 3 branched steps as queue mode. Let's run the flow again and validate the results. We can see that the data successfully went into the 3 sheets, meaning that the 3 branches were executed in parallel. Also, can configure the execution pattern of a single branch as transactional and the remaining branches as queue. This will allow all the 3 branches to be executed in parallel. In summary, the parallel branches work based on the execution pattern's configuration. Only one transactional branch will be executed out of the many transactional branches. All the queued branches will be executed. A combination of transactional and queue branches will lead to all the queue branches being executed and one of the transactional branches being executed. Next, we will show you how to create conditional steps and branches using EasyFlow. For this example, we will configure the conditions based on the established year as: if the established year is less than 2019, data will be inserted into Sheet 1. If the established year is equal to 2019, data will be inserted into Sheet 2. If the established year is greater than 2019, data will be inserted into Sheet 3. Before we start configuring the conditional criteria, let's label each branch link. To do this, click on the link and type a label name in the header of the configuration panel. Let's configure the first conditional criteria by clicking on the first branch link. Using the 4 dots icon on the left side of the criteria text box, select the established item located in the Step 2 dynamic content group. The final criteria syntax will be established less than 2019. Repeat the same configuration for the second and third branch by using the equals and greater than operators, respectively. We will now begin testing the various conditional scenarios. First, set the established year in the initial step to 2019. This means the flow will execute the middle branch and the data will be sent to Sheet 2. Second, set the established year in the initial step to 2010. This means the flow will execute the first branch and the data will be sent to Sheet 1. Third, set the established year in the initial step to 2025. This means the flow will execute the third branch and the data will be sent to Sheet 3. As shown, the conditional cases are working as expected. Let's take another example where we set a conditional expression in a linear path between the initial and second steps. Assuming our case is to proceed to the next step only if the country is equal to Australia. To configure that, click on the arrow between the first 2 steps and set the criteria as country equals Australia, then press save. Remember to set the established date back to 2019 in the initial steps. After running the flow, you can see that the data went to Sheet 2 in Google Sheets as expected. Let's change the value of the country field to USA and run the flow again. We can see that nothing was sent to Google Sheets. This means that none of the steps related to Google Sheets were executed. When examining the executions history from the Workflow Visual Designer, we can see that only one operation was executed in our last run. This means that only the initial step has been performed. Thank you for watching this video. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions.